we are continuing with our first technical session. Our next speaker is a trainer and faculty, and his specializations are HR and soft skills. He has a total work experience of more than 15 years, and he primarily works on student personality development with an aim to mold the students into professional leaders and managers. He is associated as a visiting faculty at various organizations, and the topics taught by him are human resource management, marketing topics namely OD, HRM, industrial psychology, etc. I now request our next speaker to please address us. Before that, I request our director, Dr. Sriram Nellekar, to welcome our next speaker, Mr. Gaurav Ambedkar.
Okay, very good morning everybody. So I'm pretty sure you all are excited to know what's happening in the HR fraternity. But more importantly, I honestly feel that a lot of theoretical concepts that you handle when you're doing MBA are coined by Western scholars. And you all have to interact in an Indian environment. And fine-tuning the Western concepts to Indian psychology becomes a pretty big challenge. But to be honest, that's where your bread and butter is. That's exactly where you get jobs, because you'll be hired for what isn't available in an organization. The skill sets that are already there or outsourced will not give you your jobs. So if you identify some things, maybe some folks out over here say, I'm from a rural background, your English is not good, don't worry. Honestly, today corporate India wants people from rural background because they stick out there for a long time. Isn't it? So what you perceive as a negative thing, honestly, is a positive thing, and it's what you don't know. So I would just like to run a small clip. My topic over here is change management. So you can go to the change folder. Yeah, the change folder. Yeah. And run the video. Yeah, that's one. Run it. Sound is there, right? Okay. Just have a look at this and I'll comment later.
What this organization desperately needs is change. Easily erasable. Camlin whiteboard markers.
So this is a simple ad, okay? But the message is so strong. Why does this happen? Because there is no connectivity between the tangibles and the intangibles that run in the organization. The manager said something from an intangible perspective. Let's change the company, let's bring profits, etc. The employees understood it tangibly. Why did this happen? Maybe because there is no connectivity, there is no communication, Or maybe the boss is running the organization in a very autocratic way. So, HR folks need to understand that you need to create an ambience where employees can express their emotions. And if that platform is not there, it's not going to be a good win-win situation. So, if you see, organizations today are like a boiling pressure cooker. There are internal environments boiling where employees want better working conditions, more salary hikes, and 10 different things, right? They're comparing their salaries with salaries outside the company. You know what HR managers today are doing? Instead of hiring and recruiting, they're checking how many of their employees have uploaded on resumes on Naukri. They're going out and talking to them. Please remove it. We'll work out on the next appraisals, etc. So the practicalities are one thing, but beyond that, the internal environment is one thing. Externally, you have a lot of pressure that's being built up. Pressure externally from your competitors, from your customers, competitors ready to eat up your markets. And in this volatile dynamics, the change is something that has to be handled beyond limits. Maybe you are aspiring to do something 2 years down the line, you come out of MBA, the industry is totally different. So what you pursue right now and what you will be after 2 years is different. But how do you get the connect then? Your syllabus is beautifully designed, you don't know it. It is so well designed, but unfortunately it is not implemented in the true spirit that it has to be implemented. For example, look at your projects that are there in your curriculum. How do you do it? You get along with your friends, copy paste, print out, golden embossing, finished. You know, you should actually do these projects with students in your classroom whom you don't speak with, whom you don't talk to, you know. So interacting with strangers or people whom you don't know is the real test. And then you're preparing for the corporate world rather than, you know, just getting that printout. So the emotions that run in doing the project primarily is important rather than the tangible aspect of getting the data and printing out. So more importantly, if you do this in a slightly lateral thinking approach, the way you plan yourself for change management is going to be more easy. Well, have said that, if you go into an organization, there is no much relevance between the theory in your books and the practicalities of the corporate world. And you are completely worried as to why such differences are occurring out there. The only reason being is that things are changing. Industries and organizations are becoming a combination of skill sets. So for example, if you look at an IT industry today, it may need support from other industries, or you look at core engineering industries, IT plays a very important role. So again, your syllabus is beautifully designed for this solution where there are specializations. So when you do one specialization, why not do another specialization when you pass your MBA, which you can do always externally. So just imagine that you're uploading your resume on Naukri or Monster and your profile has double specialization. How many of them are going to have it? Very few. So a bit of different approach. Just run the PPT. Yeah, change management. Okay. So I don't want to go into a lot of theoretical aspects right now, but prima facie I want to, this, which I just concluded about the internal and external factors, and more importantly, why organizations are collaborating today. You look at the old ways in which changes have happened in organizations and the new ways. For example, you look at a simple example like a Rin or a Procter & Gamble and 3-picture ad that they show for washing detergent soaps, right? A dirty cloth, Rin, and a clean cloth. Now this is maybe a global strategy for all branded companies. Huge companies have brands which are global presence. And they come up with a big strategy, they come up with a big budget, and they implement this all over India. Rather, they go beyond and they implement it globally. 3-picture ad, you know, you see it in the magazines, and they fall flat in the Arabic country because they read the opposite way. So what does that mean? The soap is making the cloth dirty. So if you don't understand the cultures, the change won't happen, profits won't come in. Please understand that organizations will look for profits. Well, you'll say there is corporate social responsibility, everything. But when you make profits, then all these things come into the picture. So your personal return on investments and your factors as to what your salaries and etc. is going to be a different calculating issue. So organizations and careers have to go through a change management cycle where structure, technology and people come into the picture. And there are multiple pressures that are going to be exerted. But this is a mindset that needs to change. For example, today if you see, there are different governments all over the world. Some believe in democracy. Some believe in socialism. Some believe in communism. Some believe in capitalism. What is the ultimate outcome? Welfare of the people. So the way you run an organization is always profits. Nothing denying that. But the way you achieve your profits is going to be different. Different companies are going to have different ideologies. You'll have to mold yourself according to the ideologies of that company. And that change has to happen because you need the job. Well, freshers need to understand that getting into a company for 2 years, anchoring yourself out over there, and then shifting to another job is job done. Then nobody can touch you. Companies will run behind you for the job. But initially, do not make the big mistake of going behind those monetary aspects of what your peers are getting, what is I am getting. And look at a very beautiful thing I would like to share with all of you. Most of the time there is a campus. Management takes all the initiative, all the help that they can give you to get the jobs, right? But look at a small change management that you all can do. It is said, it is believed that as an individual, every student reaches out to some consultant, searches Naukri, looks through Ascent, and can easily identify 10 jobs on his own without the help of the institute, right? The institute brings the campus over here and they help you, and they're doing a great track record. But you do initiate on your own, isn't it? How often do you share these opportunities? Why? Because you feel my opportunity will be taken by somebody else. Right? You don't get it, even then somebody else from the third institute gets it. So imagine 50 students in the classroom and 10 opportunities. Where is the number? 500? Okay, let's assume what you have identified is also what you have identified. Still 250? Still 125? Still 75? Compared to your 10 options, 40 options are, isn't it better? But no, the change has not happened. The mind has not triggered. Still we are in the traditional mindset. And that transition is more important because you've spent all your life in a school or an institute. And one day when you enter the big bad corporate world, it's a totally different environment. And acclimatizing to this corporate environment is a challenge for every student. So what you need to aspire is to plan much more ahead than your time. You all have seen wildlife documentaries, right? What are the animal species that have survived today? Solitary species are close to extinction. Look at the tiger, look at the rhinoceros. It's a solitary species, right? But animals that stay in a group have survived. So even what you do on a daily basis is management. And you don't need to do extraordinary stuff by going to a personality development class and do management, you know. The change has to happen from within. So when you need to talk to people, it need not be an interviewer. It can be even small kids talking in your society. Try talking to them, they'll ask you to get lost. Pretty smart people, you know. But if they've accepted you, it's a big achievement. So, what is more important for you guys is to reach out to areas which have not been tapped. You like to have customers which are not tapped, right? So your areas of personality development also need to go to areas which have not been tapped, and that's the change that is more important for you to survive in the corporate world. Well, the industry is a very difficult place. A lot of power and politics is around. You constantly need to prove yourself. You are only as good as your last performance, and that can be yesterday or 1 hour before. So ultimately, it's not something where you can take things for granted and assume, you know, that tomorrow will be a continuation of today. You constantly need to upgrade. Branded companies have made it mandatory for employees to comply specific hours of training. They may have to go to the head office in Bangalore, sit on the computer for 1 hour, give that training. Otherwise, their appraisals are withheld. These things are the trend. So all transitions, all changes need to happen in specific time. What happens if you take a turn very fast when you're driving? You'll fall down, right? Change has to be programmed in the due time it is required. If you make fast changes, they may not help you. So ultimately, you know, all these processes for you to get into industry have to be a proactive approach. And luckily, guys, you all in a place like Pune, which is the only place in the world where industry and education are so close to each other. Just name an industry, it is out over here. People from outside come here for jobs, right? You already are anchored here for 2 years. You need to know where the jobs are. You need to go out to Marada Chambers of Commerce, Institute of Engineers, know what's happening out there. Many events are there where students can just walk in, sit down, listen. You get in touch with the industry. Ask yourself, what's the timetable that you've made to synchronize all this? Is it 12 by 2, 8 by 3, 6 by 4? When the exam comes, it's 6 by 4. Right now, it's 12 by 2. So ultimately, you won't start preparing until and unless the timetable is there on the notice board. So then that change management is not good. Next. Oh, sorry. Fine. So a bit of theory over here wherein you all know the process of unfreezing, changing and refreezing, which is the theory of Kurt Lewin's. You'll get this in OD. But more importantly, if you have to implement this, or maybe you may be first year MBA students, you've done OB, that they didn't know the names of the people, so the tags were out over here. But implementation can help you. For example, British had the system of transferring army people after every 3 years, right? It's even followed today. Why is that change management required? Because at no point of time you are superior. You cannot say, oh, this is my area, I am being over here. Wind up, go new place, establish yourself again. And when you're shifted, your role also changes. So you may be a soldier out over here, in the next position you're a trainer, in the next position you're a quartermaster, and then you may be somebody who's purchasing goods for the army. So what is more important is this change, has it happened in your daily routine? You're just continuing from day A to day B. Well, there's a lot of debate on whether change is a planned approach or a unplanned approach. Well, there's a lot of time to decide whether you pluck a fruit or let it fall down. What is more precise is, have you taken the initiative? So getting your jobs is not important. Sustaining in your jobs is important. So when you go into an organization, there'll already be people out there who've done the jobs and are doing the jobs. But you all are very fascinated. There are beautiful subjects in your semesters and you suddenly want to do all that. You want to implement all that in your organizations. You'll get a time to implement it. First, you really need to keep a strong observationary approach. If your observations are not there, well, then people will not give you those opportunities. So life is all about preparation meeting opportunity. Are you prepared? Opportunities are going to come. But if it's the other way around, that, well, opportunities are coming and you're not prepared, companies are not going to like it, you're not going to like it. Anyway, moving to the force field analysis of change, here you may understand that there are pressures that are being exerted onto a given status. So you have people in favor of something, people opposing something, right? So how do you shift your status of equilibrium? Most of the time you add forces. You're not thinking of weakening the forces of opposition from a practical perspective. So when you have to weaken the forces of opposition, you need to talk, you need to create a dialogue. And creating a dialogue today is a big revelation. How often do you talk to people? When you're traveling, you see a stranger, you don't talk to him, right? Why? Because your parents have told you, don't talk to strangers. They'll threaten you, they'll kidnap you, right? But now you all are grown-ups. And honestly, if you look at the fact, a stranger is somebody who gives you your bread and butter. Whenever you go for a job, you meet a stranger. For every marketing person, the customer initially is a stranger. Still, we are not ready to accept the fact that we need to talk to strangers, we need to interact. We are still isolated in our mindsets. Think on it. So ultimately, the way we've been operating for the last so many years is not going to help us. We have to be different. And we need to exhibit that difference. So many times you're waiting at the signal, right? There's somebody next to you. You can give a smile back, right? What is the worst thing that will happen? That person will say he's gone mad, right? But we are very conservative in our approach. It's said that humor is the gift of survival. Extraordinary managers diffuse crisis just by a small smile, right? No need to do anything. But, what is more important for you guys is to get the context in which you're doing it. So when the interviewer asks you some questions, don't do what I'm telling. It will not work. The relevance is different. But more importantly, beyond what I'm telling you, there are going to be multiple changes that are going to come in your environments. And these changes are unpredictable. For example, you look at the mobile revolution that has happened, or new technologies that are coming in. Recently, there was a funny survey that air travel was dropping down. The companies didn't know why the air travel is dropping down. They did a lot of survey, they did a lot of statistics. They identified, the fuel prices have gone up. Then they said, okay, it's recession, the global economy is down. Do you know the real reason why the air industry was not doing well a few days back? Only because of the internet. Because the internet had come and there was conferencing happening all the way, big screens, people sitting in their offices, connecting to global offices. There's no need to travel. So that was one of the main reasons air industry was doing down. But well, the diagnosis was wrong. So what is the real strength of a doctor? It is in diagnosis. The treatment can be done by a nurse or the compounder. So if your diagnosis fails, your management initiatives are not going to work. So the change has to be first diagnosed. That's applicable to both tangible and intangible aspects. You fall sick, you go to a doctor, you think, great, wow, you've been cured. The first thing is you should not fall sick. You should have a proper diet. You should eat healthy food. And you, all of you folks over here, I know, sitting in the classrooms, many of you are empty stomach. That is the biggest crime. If you can't even take care of your stomach, you can't understand what's happening. So you need to set up your timetables for change to happen and follow that timetable. How often do you do it? Ask yourself. There are hours and hours and hours of discussion that can go on this topic. Anyway, just come out. Okay, hang on. I'll just ask you to do a very small funny activity. Everybody need to do exactly what I'm telling you to do, okay? Everybody hands up. Everybody hands on your shoulders. Everybody hands up. Everybody hands back. Everybody hands on your head. Everybody hands back. Everybody hands on your head. Everybody hands on your chin. Where's your chin? Okay. You can call it as a marketing strategy, fooling the customer. But we've been programmed and programmed and programmed to do things in a specific way. So it's time for you, to stop thinking and ask questions. And obviously, asking questions can be in a very noble way, in a diplomatic way, in a respectable way. But the moment you stop asking questions, you stop learning. So I'm expecting a lot of questions from all of you. Beyond that, the industry that you select has its own ways of growing and accelerating. Per se, when you're here for placements, marketing people get the jobs very easily. But you don't know when your job will go. If you don't meet your targets, you're kicked out. So ultimately, HR jobs may not come that fast, very easily, very quickly. 100 people have one HR, right? But once you get the job, it's a bit of an anchorage. Because even if organizations want to ask people to go, you'll be doing that job and then rebuilding that company. So struggle is there, whether it's at the initial level or at the later level. Please identify. Look at your skill sets. More importantly, friends, your hobbies are your jobs. Please. Not hobbies, hobbies. So, you need to understand and you need to present it to your interviewers also. Because every profession needs to have a hobby that will relate very strongly. For example, one of the interviews I was going through, the candidate said that his hobby is gardening. So beautiful. Relating to HR very well. Taking care of nature, taking care of people. Well, then marketing may have reading and XYZ. But ultimately, if you select your hobbies and pursue everybody is not lucky to make your hobby as a profession. Sachin may have been the lucky one. But then you need to make your job so enjoyable that it becomes your career. It becomes your hobby. So you can do the reverse thing. And primarily, we generally tend to make decisions individually. Group decision is something that we are as Indians generally not open up. So make a habit of always talking to people and taking an opinion. Japanese do it in a very good way. Delegates always in 3 go out and reach out for business. And if the deal is not made, I have to ask my seniors, Here I am the decision authority. So the deal happens or it doesn't happen. That's the problem. So ultimately, the moment you create an opinion, look at it in this way. If you get the things right, you take the podium. But if things go wrong, you are blamed, right? So, if everybody has taken the decision and it has gone wrong, let's come together and sort it out. Well, that can also help, right? So, rather than only looking at positives all the time. So, ultimately, we need to have that change triggered where we start reaching out to people, and you can do it as students, because as you proceed ahead and ahead, your mindset is going to become more and more robust. It's not going to accept things in a much more open environment. So ultimately, right now is the time for you to mold yourself as to the corporate expectations. So I won't take more time. We'll go with the questions now. Please understand, the moment you stop asking questions, you stop learning. So you may get a job only if you ask a question. And, well, before I forget, when the interviewer asks you, do you have any questions? This is the time for you to make the final nail in the coffin. Do you know what you need to ask? What are my urgent priorities on the job? Well, the interviewer will tell you. Well, you will be selected as an assistant manager, you'll work with this, you'll report to this, then you'll have a training, etc., right? But if they say, we'll tell you in the next interview, it's not gone well. Think you're home now. So make sure you don't ask this to the campus interview, okay? Or all will ask the same question there. No questions, we'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaurav Ambedkar. The key takeaway of his speech was you're as good as your previous performance, which may be the last month, the last week, or the last hour. I now request Honorable Director Dr. Sriram Nelekar to felicitate Mr. Gaurav Ambedkar.